This is Tokyo Real. I'm Ian Simpson, and with me today I have Andy Puddicombe, who is the co-founder of the meditation app Headspace, with over 7 million users and counting in over 200 countries. Andy, welcome to Tokyo Real.
Thanks, Ian. It's a pleasure. Pleasure to be on with you.
Great. I know you're super busy and you're in between meetings, so we'll sort of get straight into it. Yeah, you've got a fascinating story. Maybe I could bring the viewers or listeners up to sort of scratch on where you are on your bit of your history, if I can first, and then we'll get into it from there. Yeah. So we're both from the UK, and your story, if I'm correct, is in your late teens, after a series of traumatic events in your life, you went off to university, and after a short time in university, you gave it up, took yourself off to Tibet in a monastery, where you stayed for about 10 years, traveling around various monasteries, eventually ending up as an ordained monk. Is that correct?
Well, broad brushstroke. There's a few things kind of that I guess are a little different.
Right.
I think the way the media often kind of present stories, they like it to be really neat and tidy. So yeah, the story is that I left England and I went to Tibet for 10 years. That's not really quite as it was. I started meditation really early on, even as a kid, with my mum back in England, back in the southwest in Bristol, and then yeah, there were a number of things that kind of happened in my late teens, and I was really kind of having a tough time by the time I went to university. I was just looking for a way to kind of find a bit more peace of mind, and for me, the idea of being a Buddhist monk and really kind of delving into meditation was what resonated most. So I left. I actually went to India rather than Tibet, and from India I ended up studying in Burma and in the Burmese tradition for about 5 years. Not all the time in the monastery, but a good bit. And then about 5 years in, I got more interested in the Tibetan tradition, and actually over the last sort of 50 years or so, a lot of the good teachers have been forced out of Tibet because of the whole sort of political situation there, and now they're in either northern India or Nepal. So I ordained in a monastery in northern India, and yeah, became a monk in the Tibetan tradition.
Right. Yeah. Fascinating. I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about your experiences in the monasteries and what you gained from it, and how Headspace came out of that, how it influenced what we've become now.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a certain idea that I think most people have of monasteries, especially in the Himalayas, and I think it's quite a romantic notion that most of us have of it. And on a very busy day in the office, I'm sure many people have kind of thought, oh, it'd be nice to be up there. It's actually, it's an incredible experience, but it's actually quite tough. I think most of us, whenever we experience difficulty or struggle in the mind, we tend to distract ourselves with things. So we go outside of ourselves. Maybe we'll call friends, or we'll watch TV, or we'll pick up a magazine, or we'll scroll through our social media feed or emails. So we're always kind of distracted. When you're in a monastery, there is none of that stuff. So you're just kind of sat there with the mind as it is, and the mind isn't always compliant. You'll know this, in you've meditated a little bit. And so a lot of it to begin with is simply getting comfortable being with the mind as it is. Yeah. And that's a great skill to learn, because it means you have to develop patience, you have to develop acceptance, and you have to be kind of willing to look into the mind. Why do we think and feel the way we do, and how do we so easily kind of get caught up in the thoughts and the feelings of the mind? So it's a skill for life, and something which is every bit as relevant in everyday life for me now as it was living as a monk in the monastery.
And you stayed there a long time.
Yeah, it was good length of time, and long enough to really get I think nothing like the experience of my teachers, but still a good understanding of meditation, a good working knowledge of it. And it was actually, I was still a monk, but I'd been asked to go and teach at a meditation center in Moscow. in Russia, and where I ended up living for about 4.5 years. And when I was there, people would come along to the meditation center, and these are just regular people, regular lives, and they would say, well, it's fine for you to sit there as a monk, you don't really have any stresses kind of going on in your life. What about us? I've got kids at home, I've got a busy life, and also people found very often the way I was dressed, as a Buddhist monk, a bit of an obstacle to learning meditation. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, wow, there's this amazing skill that anybody in the world can learn. It transcends age and gender and race and cultural background, everything. And yet, how I'm dressed is an obstacle to many of those people kind of learning this skill. And so I thought long and hard about it, and I made the decision to finish my time as a monk, but to continue teaching meditation.
Right. Yes. And the kind of meditation that you specialize in is mindfulness. Yes.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Can you tell me what is mindfulness, and is it different from meditation, or is it a form of meditation?
Yeah. So I think it's really confusing now, actually, because it's the two words are used interchangeably so often. They're actually really two different things. I would say at Headspace, mindfulness is the basis of all meditation that we do and provide, but we provide many different types of meditation. So the easiest way to think about it, distinguishing the two, mindfulness is simply being present. So we've talked a little bit about this by emailing, but it could even be, it doesn't have to be during meditation, it could be in the water surfing, it could be walking down the street, it could be eating our lunch, it could be socializing with friends. We can be present in any single moment in our life, and by present I simply mean undistracted, not lost in our thoughts. But for most people, learning how to be mindful in everyday life is a real challenge. It's really difficult because the mind is so used to just wandering off and getting distracted. So we need an exercise in which we remove ourselves from the busyness of everyday life, and where we simply sit undisturbed and learn how to be present. And that's meditation.
Right. So as opposed to what's going to happen tomorrow or in the future, or what happened yesterday and how it affected us, how we feel, you're saying we should bring it all back to what is happening in front of us at this moment in time.
Yeah, and for a very kind of good reason, People may well say, yeah, but I love daydreaming about what might happen in the future. And there was a really interesting study that was done at Harvard University, probably 5-6 years ago now. And they were looking into typically how often does the mind wander. And they found that it was close to 50%. I think it was like 46, 47%. And that was interesting, and it's frightening as well to think that we could spend so much of our life lost in thought. But the really interesting conclusion for me from that study was that they found the more that people allowed their minds to wander, generally, the more unhappy they were. So it wasn't that people's minds were wandering into really kind of lovely, kind of fanciful places of, daydreaming of lying on the beach. Most people were getting involved in anxiety and impatience and frustration and worry. And I think there's something in that, and I think all of us as human beings can relate to that. So knowing how to step out of that, how to step back from it and find peace of mind, I think it's probably pretty high on the list for most people.
Absolutely, yes. I think all of us have a busy mind and getting more busy all the time with the more things we do, yeah?
Yeah.
And I think it's wonderful what you're doing, and I absolutely love the app, and it's before I found Headspace. I mean, the only thing I could equate to meditation is, as we just said, well, actually, we were introduced by a mutual friend of ours, Tim Jones, who
That's
runs,
right. Yeah.
Tim runs Surf School Lanzarote and Surf School Sri Lanka. So actually, anyone out there who wants to get into surfing should get themselves out to Tim's school and learn how to do it properly and safely.
Absolutely.
It's a very professional setup. He's doing a great job there, and he introduced me to you, and. My point was the nearest thing I had come to it before I came across Headspace was, paddling out into the waves, sitting in the lineup, catching a few waves, and that busy mind of mine. That's the only time in my life when it would probably become calm.
Yeah.
So my question to you, because you're a surfer and of course you do the meditation, is there
Yeah.
any tangible link between the two? Do you think?
I think there is, and I mean, first of all, I should say I don't know if I could. I surf, but I don't know if I can call myself a surfer. My
Mm.
enthusiasm and passion for it makes up for my lack of ability. I hope. I think definitely there's some crossover, and I was talking just now about that sort of distinction between meditation and mindfulness. I think when we're in the water,
Mm.
it's such a conducive environment for being more mindful. So there's loads of science actually which shows simply being in nature. So even if we take the surfing kind of component out of it, simply being in the water, immersed in nature, that in itself has a very particular effect on both the body and the mind. So already, simply getting into the water, we're going to be feeling better. But then, if we think about surfing, and anyone who surfs will relate to this. As
Mm.
soon as you are sort of either going for the wave or you're on the wave, in that moment, there's not really any room for any other thought. You are completely at one with that wave, and if you're not, then you're probably going to
You're
fall
gonna
off the
wipe out.
board. You know, and if and all the technicalities of meditation. If you we talk a lot about kind of right effort. Same on a board. If you're kind of trying too hard, and we all have those days where maybe we're just a bit amped up or something, and we're trying a little bit too hard, we're
Mm.
probably going to fall off. We'll have other days where maybe our concentration just isn't kind of quite there. Again, it's almost like we're too relaxed, we're too laid back, we fall off. So we're looking for that sweet spot of flow, where we're focused, but we're also really relaxed. And for me, I look at definitely people like Kelly, but maybe like John and people like that who, I mean, the level of relaxation in
Yeah.
that guy. I mean, he's almost horizontal on the board, and yet he's still focused enough to make incredible airs. So there's something there, it's almost, outside of the water. I look, recently we had the Olympics, and I look at someone like Usain Bolt, running the 100 meters. Like the guy's laughing as he runs over the finishing line. So, and yet he has to be focused. So there's something about sport and seeing this kind of physical manifestation of mindfulness. It's so hard to get a sense of it. The mind's so intangible, but when we see it in sport or expressed in music or art, I think it starts to make a little more sense.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Interestingly enough, on that and Kelly Slater, I had Andrew Cotton, the Red Bull big wave surfer, on the show a few
Yeah,
weeks ago.
amazing,
Yeah,
amazing.
and I introduced him before he came on for the interview. I'd introduced him to the Wim Hof method of breathing. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
I'm not, no.
No, check it out sometime. Wim Hof. It's a lot of the top athletes are picking up on it now, and he was saying that he was in the water a month or so after I'd introduced it to him, and Kelly Slater was sitting in the lineup by the side of him, and he
Yeah.
said he was actually talking about the Wim Hof method, and then in his heats now he actually does some kind of that breathing similar to what you do on
Yeah.
Headspace. It's very
Yeah.
similar, but actually in the heat he is consciously going through certain breathing techniques to stay calm, to stay focused, to stay in the moment.
Mm.
So that's a real, I mean, 11 times world champion, and they're using it at the very top level. And you mentioned the Olympics because you've been working with some of the Olympians, yeah, recently.
We have, yeah.
Yeah,
We actually started work with them 5 years ago. So even
right.
prior to having the app, so Headspace has been around for 7 years. We ran events for the first few years, and we worked with some of Team GB kind of prior to London 2012. In fact, got some really great results, and off the back of that, we worked with the English Institute of Sport to come up with a whole series of programs that elite athletes could use in the lead up to Rio.
Right, because you mentioned to me that maybe after the Olympics, there was you had maybe a new app or series coming out.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a new vertical or a new channel in the app. So right now, when you go into the app, and you can choose packs from the health channel or from relationships or performance. We're launching in just a couple of days' time. In fact, it may have even gone live today. We're just doing a soft launch now. There'll be 4 of those packs coming out. So they're the same packs that we used with elite athletes. They're around training, competition, recovery, focus. So really kind of for anybody to understand, to better understand the mind and to better understand how important the mind is when you're engaging in any kind of sport.
Right. I've got it on the screen in front of me on my other computer at the moment, just
Mm.
because having a look in it. Actually, I was doing it before you came online. So I mean, it's a beautiful platform, and what you seem to have done, maybe you could talk to me a little bit about this, is strip away all the preconceived links with meditation that are perhaps not that scared us away in the past, and simplified
Yeah.
it and added some sports science. Is that the intentionally what you try to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, it's kind of happened really organically. I didn't really kind of set out with the intention of doing that. I think that I'm just I'm a regular bloke, and I
Mm.
happen to have gone away and spent some time as a Buddhist monk, but I'm still just a regular bloke. So I wanted to present it in a way that I would have loved it to have been presented,
Yeah.
when I was a teenager, and I would have so loved to have just had something that spoke my language and that felt relatable rather than something mystical from sort of thousands of sort of miles away. So I
Mm.
think when I left the monastery, I started working first in a clinic, just sort of one to one with people, and I did that for a couple of years, and I got a much better understanding of what techniques worked, what landed, what didn't, what kind of language worked. And then I met the co-founder of Headspace, and it's really important. Like, I'm obviously I get to do a lot of interviews and things, but Rich's involvement is so important. I mean, he is responsible for the look and the feel, the tone of Headspace. I think it has become a really accessible thing, and that's not just the language of the meditation. That's how it looks as an app, and the design team. We have an amazing team here. It's probably about 120 here in the LA office, and then some over in London, and the work that the guys do every day to come up with those illustrations and animations as an editorial team. It's a really kind of big team effort. But again, we're all just regular people, and I hope that the reason kind of people relate to it so much is because people are living very similar lives to as we are here.
Yeah, and that absolutely comes through, Andy. In your company is that you are regular people, and I mean the support I get from your girls and support
Yeah,
team is wonderful. It's quick. They're
it's great.
friendly. I feel as though I know them when they come back to me, and they come back really quickly.
It's great.
So yeah, it is cool. And you talk about the feeling for it, the animations. They're wonderful. And in two in particular, maybe you could talk about the significance of the particularly the blue sky.
Yeah,
Yeah, the blue sky video and the sitting by the side of the road video. For me,
yeah.
or they rung a bell with me, and I related to them. Can you talk a little bit about the significance of those and how they relate to people's feelings?
For sure, so I think that the best way people can experience these is to watch them. I can talk you through the ideas, and these are available in the free part of the Headspace app. But I think they were both stories that were given to me when I was in the monastery that I found really useful. And when I used to tell people about them at our events, they really seemed to strike a chord. So we decided to turn them into animations. I think they're both designed to overcome people's preconceptions about meditation.
Yes.
Lots of people have tried meditation, and even those who've tried often kind of give up. They say they're no good at it, that their mind's too busy. And like, part of the problem is that people, we tend to think that meditation is about stopping thoughts. And because of that, meditation is incredibly uncomfortable because, of course, the mind is not going to stop producing thoughts just because we're sitting down with our eyes closed doing something that we call meditation.
Mm.
So the mind is still kind of producing these thoughts. So the way it was described to me is, look, rather than sitting down and trying to stop thoughts, imagine that you're sitting on the side of a busy road. The cars that are going past, they're your thoughts. Now, our job as meditators is simply to sit, to remain where we are, just watching the cars go past, just paying attention. Some days it's going to be really heavy traffic. That's okay. We just watch the really heavy traffic. Other days, maybe it's a little lighter. Now, if we continue to watch the traffic in this way, not getting caught up in it, not falling into the temptation of chasing after the shiny looking cars, the nice thoughts, or running out into the road and trying to stop the cars we don't like the look of quite so much, the difficult thoughts, then after a while the traffic on the road naturally starts to slow down, and we may experience during those times perhaps even an empty road at times, but that's not the point. If that happens, that's fine and that's nice. The point is to feel at ease no matter how many thoughts are in the mind. And that's the real freedom, because we all, look, when the mind is calm and happy, that's easy. We all know how to deal with that. There's not really anything to deal with. But when we really need kind of a sense of perspective is in really difficult situations in life, and when the mind is very busy. So that's the power of that analogy, I think.
And we hold on to a lot of those things, don't we, from the past? And what you're saying is, well, have a look at those cars that you don't like, but just let them go past, and woof, they've gone, and don't keep holding on to them. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yesterday, for the first time ever, I had at the beginning of our staff meeting, we had a staff meeting with my senior staff there, about half a dozen of us, and I said, okay, for the first 10 minutes, we're going to do some meditation, and they also looked at me. I said, indulge me, please. And we did it, and they loved it. And
that's great.
I explained, about the basics of it, the focusing on these two videos, and it was, I probably won't do it every meeting, but occasionally I definitely will, because it was a great start to the meeting, and they all went off and took the domain name. They're all going to get into it, so
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
And the Blue Sky one, that was what, again, you probably just touched on that. Is what you're saying is that this blue sky is always there, but sometimes we forget it. But it's actually on the other side of the clouds or the troubles that we have, and we can go through them and get back to it. Yeah.
Exactly, and it's not even, we might even think like, we have to make an effort to experience the blue sky, but meditation is a very subtle kind of thing. Like, it doesn't require a lot of effort. In fact, the more we impose our will on meditation, the further away we get from what we want to experience. So this idea of blue skies, it really kind of helps people relax in their meditation, in their practice. So the idea being that the blue sky is kind of the innate contentment that exists within us all, but that every now and again, the clouds start to come along. There are thoughts, and sometimes the sky can get extremely cloudy, and we sometimes, for some people, that becomes chronic, and they may not even experience kind of any happiness in their life for a very long period of time. But once we kind of understand the dynamic, and we know that actually we don't have to try and create blue sky, that already exists. It's more about building up awareness of the clouds, understanding the movement of the clouds, watching that, observing that, not getting caught up in the storyline, not thinking about the clouds, because that just produces more clouds, but instead just maintaining that position of observing. And the more we do that, so the clouds start to disperse, so we start to experience more of the blue sky. And eventually, again, in time, we might experience a really beautiful, bright, sunny day.
Right. Yeah, got it. I love the I love the metaphor, the analogy. It really works. It's good. And so, what kind of people can get the most benefit from Headspace?
Yeah, I mean, top level, and anyone with a mind.
Right.
Like, we all have a mind, and we all struggle with the mind at times, and it's useful to have that. But I think there are my own kind of position on this is that meditation is a skill, and every single person gets to define what meditation is by how they choose to use it. So we have parents who are at home looking after their kids who use it to be a little less stressed. We do happen to have Olympic athletes who use it for performance. We have multinational global corporations who use it to sort of help with performance, focus, productivity within their own companies. Equally, we have cancer hospitals that are using it for their doctors, their nurses, and their patients. We have prison services that are using it for their inmates. We have schools that are using it for kids. We have NGOs in Africa that are using it to help with their volunteers. It's so broad, and when you look at the demographic split, for sure there's more people between sort of the ages of 20 and 40 who are using it, but we have an incredible split, kind of as young as 4, as old as 92. An equal split of male and female. It's a really unusual service in that way, I think, that appeals to a large number of people.
Yeah. Well, on Tokyo Reel, we tend to focus on achieving high performance. So
Yeah.
I think for our members in particular, be it in business or sport, because they're from various backgrounds, it would be really useful. Yeah. So we're gonna we've already been talking about it. We're going to push it even more because I think it really contributes to achieving high performance. Yeah.
It does. I think for me, when I look at even if you look at our investors at Headspace, excuse me, we did a round of investment last year, and one of them is Jeff Weiner, who's the CEO of LinkedIn. And if ever there was a place that really understood the needs of people in business, who really understood the value of focus, productivity, and performance at work, it's Jeff. Obviously, they've done a deal with Microsoft now, but it's talking to those guys at LinkedIn and better understanding kind of the need for these things at work. It's so difficult. The temptation is to think that we have our work mind and our home mind, and this whole idea of work-life balance and everything else, as though work is somehow separate from the rest of our life. But it's not. When we go to work, we take our mind with us. And that includes all the things that have happened outside of work.
Yes.
And likewise, when we leave work and we need to go home and we need to rest and unwind, and that's a really important part of being productive and focused the next day, equally, we tend to take the baggage of the day with us. So knowing how to put that down, how to let go of that, so that we can be present at work and also present at our home is an incredibly valuable thing.
Absolutely. And again, we talk on Tokyo Reel about developing the whole the healthy body equals a healthy mind. That's what we say. Yeah. So we all know how to develop the body. We get in the gym, we pump iron, we go for a cycle ride, we run. But most of us don't know how to develop the mind or look after the mind, do we? So this this sort of simplifies it to a level that we can all do it, whether we're top athletes or whether, last night I had my kids. My kids are 8 and 11, and I was going through the platform and I found one for kids. So I said, hey, come and do this 1 minute of breathing. They did it, and it's a start already. You said you started when you were 10 with your mother, I think.
That's right.
And so I thought, well, look, I'm just gonna. I think, and the way you did it, like 1 minute with the kids, that was enough for them. So But developing the body as a whole, the mind and the body together, I think is really important as well.
Yeah, I would really encourage people to think about it. If you're looking at it from a performance point of view, like you can look at this in exactly the same way as exercise, in the same way as when you go to the gym, and let's say you're lifting a weight, and that muscle as a result receives more blood flow. It gets thicker and stronger over time. In the same way, when we sit to meditate, we know now, so through fMRI scanning, we know that when we sit to meditate, the part of the brain responsible for a feeling of happiness and well-being in the mind, in the brain, that receives more blood flow, it gets thicker and stronger, and as a result, we spend more time in that place. So that's something called neuroplasticity, if people want to Google it and have a look, but that's a real thing. So this isn't kind of, something, as I say, can feel very intangible, but from a performance point of view, when you're sitting down to meditate, you are training the mind in just the same way as you would train the body.
Right. Yeah. That's great. And if you'll indulge me, I always ask my guests towards the end some success secret questions. 2 little questions for you. Number 1. If you could go back and give the 20-year-old Andy some advice, what would it be?
Yeah, I would definitely encourage. I've always been a little bit kind of all on nothing, and willing to kind of follow my gut, follow my heart, however you want to think about it. I would just say never kind of never doubt that. Even if thoughts of doubt will arise in the mind, and that's fine, but you don't need to buy into those thoughts. If there is a strong feeling, if you feel strongly moved in a particular kind of way in life, listen to that, follow it.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you. And number two, if there is there one decision that you have made that fundamentally contributed to the success of Headspace?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there are. Goodness me, there are many. Can I have two?
Yes. You can have as many as you want.
I think. Look, choosing to leave the monastery, Headspace. I couldn't do what I do now. If I still lived there, or even if I was still a monk. So I think that was really kind of instrumental. The second one was meeting Rich. It wasn't something that I set out to do. We were introduced by a mutual friend, but you know Headspace works because everybody here has a different skill set. Like, no one person can do everything on their own, and no one person can be brilliant or even good at everything. So, Rich and I, we really respect each other's kind of skill sets, as we do everybody here in the team. And again, I just cannot imagine Headspace ever happening in the way that it's happened without Rich being kind of front and center.
Yeah. Right. Actually, I was going to ask you about that. We only got about 2 minutes left, but quickly, I was going to say you spent 10 years in a monastery, and then you came out, and you probably didn't even know what a smartphone or an iPad was, and you set up a highly successful tech business. And
Yeah,
so
who'd
I
have
guess I
thought?
guess you just answered that. It was to do with meeting Rich, yeah, I guess.
It was, and yeah, I was the latest adopter on the planet. I think. I don't think I'm not sure I even had a mobile phone when I met Rich, but yeah, I didn't know what apps were, and it's been a pretty steep learning curve over the last 8 years. But it's such an amazing thing. I think phones get a really hard time. Everyone says they're the cause of our stress. Phones are a piece of metal and plastic, that or glass. That's all they are. They're not good. They're not bad. For me, they represent an incredible opportunity to deliver something really positive at a scale that really has never been possible before, and to have reached so many people in such a short period of time is just, yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, because I heard you say once how long it took to spread meditation throughout Tibet
Yeah,
and then
right. Yeah,
and you're over 7 million users now in a
yeah.
few years, so it must be very satisfying for sure.
It's great to see. It's,
Yeah.
yeah, very, very fortunate.
And where can our viewers find you on Headspace?
Yeah, so if people want to find out more about Headspace, I mean, if people want to try Headspace, the best way is to either go to iTunes or to the Google Play Store and download the app. You can download it for free, and you can also continue to use it for free. So there's a free component on there. If after a while you want to kind of go a little bit deeper and you want to learn a little bit more, then you can also subscribe to the app. But I'd also recommend people go to headspace.com. We have a fantastic blog called the Orange Dot. There's loads of great contributors on there. There's Headspace Radio. There's lots of kind of past episodes that are available to listen to as well. And there's loads of really good science information. So if it's something that you've never really thought of doing, you're not really sure kind of whether it would work for you, then I would thoroughly recommend you have a look at the work of the science team and some of the research that we've got going on around the world at the moment.
Great. Okay, well, we'll be doing our best on Tokyo Road to push Headspace because I think it's a wonderful thing. And
Thanks, Ian.
thank you for bringing it to us, and thank you for your time today. I really do appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. It's
And
a pleasure.
I know you've got to rush off, so maybe in the future sometime we can have a surf or talk again and get the video
I'd
working
love
next
that.
time.
I'd love that.
All
That'd be
right.
great.
Okay, well, you have a good day. Thank you for
Thanks so
everything.
much, Ian.
I'll speak to you again.
All right, take
Okay.
care. Bye
Bye
now.
bye. Thank you.